Hello and welcome to pjnet.tv and this video segment, My Perspective and Comments. Well folks, we've this last month or so we've really seen a lot of changes in our nation, and there are more to come. And I want to start right out, as we have been over this last month plus, talking about the Wuhan flu virus and the spread throughout our globe and what's being done. And I want to talk about, we've really focused here at pjnet.tv in discussing prevention. And we started that right from the onset when we saw things happening over in China, and what they were doing and what we needed to do in preparation should this become very serious and severe here in our country. Well folks, if you fast forward to today, we've already seen some major historic changes in our government right now, and how they are dealing with this, and how they are dealing with you and I, and what government is expecting us to do as citizens. And I want to focus again quickly. I'm just going to quickly review on what we've talked about. Keep a hygiene, and in our continual effort as Americans to do the things that would not spread this Wuhan flu virus as rapidly. And there was a game plan put in place, and I want to talk about that game plan, but I also want to talk about what we are being expected to do as Americans, and the strategy and the attack on this Wuhan virus. So again, quickly review in precautions: washing our hands, and almost I would say in excess at this point, especially when you're in public, and washing with the warm soap and water is fine. Hand sanitizers are flying off the shelves, if you can even find any right now. But if you soap and water works quite fine. And we talked about provisions, having provisions. Well folks, we're in the middle of this, and if you saw the news, store shelves were bare, and try and find some toilet paper right now, and you might have to go to a few stores to find some. So again, we talked about that preparation, and to be able to hunker down for 2 weeks, 3 weeks to a month, and you know, those were things that I thought were prudent at the time to try and get ahead of this curve. And we, as we saw of the Wuhan come to our nation, it's proven out that a lot of our leaders right now are shutting down everything: schools, movie theaters, Broadway has been shut down, any gathering place, restaurants, pubs, any gathering of more, they're telling us more than 10 people, they want to shut that down. Now folks, I want to shift gears from that prevention. We talked about that. But now I want to talk about you and I. We are Americans, and I think we really need to have this conversation. You know, a game plan was put in place. But folks, we're Americans. We're not Chinese. We're not North Korea. We're not Europe. We're Americans. And what we aren't is meh, meh, meh. We're not sheep. We want to be told, we want to have the information, and we want to have some choices. And what I want to talk about right now is, do we as Americans, did we in the onset here maybe look at the wrong template? We knew, because I want to say right now, we are primarily following the China model. And I guess, you know, looking back now, is China the nation we really want to get our cues from, especially what they did early on in this this Wuhan virus that came to China. Our professionals, our medical staff, and those people that would be able to help China, they didn't want us there. And they dragged their feet on giving us the information to be able to help them, and to also prepare other nations and ourselves, and make sure that the CDC was up to speed before this hit. So are they really the model that we wanted to follow? So again, I want to talk about, we are Americans, and are there some other thoughts in battling this Wuhan virus? And we are seeing other nations that took other tracks other than following the China model. And I want to talk about one. The thought was just this is a wildfire. And as I talked to you, I believe it was last week, we talked about this, and the virus as the nature of this virus. Fast moving, very aggressive. We're finding out now that typically the critical stages are 1, 2, 3 days, high fever, breathing. Those that have existing conditions are quite vulnerable, especially if you add that with age. Everyone else, some, it's starting to vary now. We're seeing some young people coming down with the Wuhan virus full-fledged, and there are some different outcomes. But primarily, some you wouldn't even know they had it. Others, it's like a cold, and there are some that have the actual the higher fever. But I want to talk about some different tracks. Europe, what did they do? Italy, they said, hey, let's go. Just let it burn through, and we're going to socialize, and we're going to continue on. That model looks to have been a failed model, and that approach really has put many thousands of people in a situation where they critical. In fact, and in jeopardy of more lives being lost than potentially really needed to be. But I want to focus on one strategy that would be something that we would even right now consider. And why do I say that? Because, folks, the secret of this, the dirty secret is that we, they're talking about this the burning on through with the strategy that we have. As I talked to you last week and the week before, this is what we're doing in America right now, is to avoid what's happened in the other nations that we're looking at, all of them. The flooding and the breaking of the medical system. That's what we have been trying to do, to stamp the brakes and say, look, we're not gonna gather in large numbers. We're going to try and contain this and mitigate exposure to the Wuhan virus. Now, I want to talk primarily at this point and kind of focus in on, yes, that's a strategy, and again, we're Americans, and in order for this to be successful, everyone has to buy into that. But it's, as Americans, give us the facts. Tell us some other alternatives that might be on the table to fight this Wuhan flu virus. And the one track that seems to be, at this point, in hindsight, looking out 2 months from when this swept through over in China, and at this point I want to focus on South Korea, because it was South Korea that took a different move here when it comes to combating and fighting this Wuhan flu virus. And what they did was they said, look, we're going to continue with social mingling, but to protect those that are vulnerable. Really make an aggressive stance to either self quarantine and the nursing homes and the care centers to try and totally do a quarantine in those areas. And that's what I want to focus on right now, is that, what we're being told right now is this: we need to get through this, and it's going to burn off. But folks, as you and I know, the flu has been around for quite a while, and people have been getting flu shots continually every season. And if we look back and we see trends here, most likely the Wuhan virus isn't going anywhere. So what do we want to do, and what has taken place? Well, here's where I want to focus on and maybe give a different perspective and a different thought for us to think about. And that is, I would say, why not consider social mingling, but with the emphasis to anyone with pre-existing conditions might want to self-quarantine, and especially nursing homes and hospitals where people are coming in for routine surgeries and that could be potentially compromised, being in the hospital for whatever condition they're going in, and really focus on that area. Because right now, look, they're telling us right now, the experts are telling us that we might not have an inoculation until 18 months from now. Well, if that's the case, then look, folks, let's think about this. We already have inoculation. We already have a way to start to protect ourselves. And what is that? That's the Wuhan virus itself. And if we were to maybe take a look at what South Korea did, continue to social modeling and social mingling, and protect those that are vulnerable, that have the pre-existing conditions, but continue to let this burn through. One, the people get it. They get resistance to it, antibodies. Our natural bodies will get some resistance against this Wuhan virus. In essence, a flu shot. The Wuhan virus can be that shot. But 18 months from now, and I'm already hearing whispers that this plan that we're going through right now, this social distancing, could go. The scenario might be no church services, no gathering in our supermarkets, they'll only be open at certain times a day. No restaurants or clubs or anything open right now. Every 2 months. So when they find a case here or there, or we reverse a little bit our social the social distancing and come together, and the Wuhan flu rears up again, then we have to go right down to these stringent measures again. And we're already talking about our leaders, some of our governors and Congress talking about maybe some even more stringent measures to control the population. So at this point, I would say, at least as Americans, as I said, we are Americans. We're not Chinese. We're not Koreans. We're not these other nations. We're Americans, and give us the facts and lay out some scenarios. And because what's going to happen, folks, because we are Americans, there's only going to go so far. And we've already seen the governor in New York start to call out the National Guard. He was, and to put a lockdown on, in some certain areas that, like Westchester County, for instance, where he brought them in, and he said that he really wanted to limit travel. Well, we're starting to hear rumblings right now. In fact, they say this might have come from some hacker that went out and said that the government was going to put a national travel ban on every American. But, that might have been a hack. But that very question, could it happen in America? And I believe that things are ripe right now. And as I mentioned to you before, Rahm Emanuel, who was chief of staff for Clinton back in the day, one of his famous sayings was, "You never let a crisis go to waste." And right now, we're seeing governors, we're seeing government power being acquired. And that brings me the point, this government power now, because we have a crisis going on, and these governors all over our nation are saying, okay, state of emergency, and I'm like Cuomo, and I'm giving myself the powers to be able to shut everything down, call out the National Guard, and limit Americans moving anywhere in New York. So, what does that mean? Well, it's going to get to a point, if in a national sense, Americans, they will go along with a game plan, but when our freedoms continually get taken away, then that's a concern. And here's an example I want to use. And we still have this in place right now. And what was that? 9/11. And I'll tell you, when I saw those Twin Towers come down, I was a lot of emotion. One was angry and I was right in President Bush's corner that, we're going to deal with this, and, whatever it takes. And one of the whatever it takes was the Patriot Act. And all that went along with the Patriot Act. I was for it. But there were voices out there that were saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're giving our government powers that might, it's good right now to address this, but are there provisions like sunsetting, where a law gets written, to deal with an emergency, but after a year after that crisis diminishes and it's ended, that law sunsets and it's no longer in access. Well, how many years? 20 years? Almost? Yeah, 20 years has gone by since that attack. And what do we have here? We have a president for over 3 years being investigated and brought up to be impeached because the FBI and others were incorporating surveillance on American citizens, wiretaps, and having the FISA court that was established to deal with these issues. And what did we have? We had an agency that basically was running rogue and actually going after and getting evidence on an administration. And we saw that agency being used as a political arm. So, once again, a lot of these governors and a lot of these laws that they're giving themselves, and the power that they're giving themselves, are there any sunset clauses that America will go back to normal, and the rights that we've lost and the privileges that we've lost through this crisis, Americans regain those? And that is a question that should be asked. And again, we're Americans and we should be able to ask questions. And as it comes to President Trump, anything he does right now I mean, like closing the border. When he initially did that, you heard the Democrats and the liberal lapdog media, say, oh, he's racist. And then when what happened? 2-3 weeks later, these other governments are doing the very same thing that President Trump enacted. So, again, as I told you before, I'm sick of this left-wing media, and it's better because they're stirring up and scaring people, not helping people. And supposedly they give you some things and messages that are and reporting that's going to help you, but it's always at a slant. And look, I can get my message. I can, I know that we have CDC, for instance, some of the professionals that tell us how to deal with this Wuhan virus, and to look to those facilities to get our information. But right now we have a media that has an agenda, and it's a hate Trump agenda, and it's get him however it takes. And what are they doing? As Rahm Emanuel said, don't let a crisis go to waste. So they're trying to hit President Trump, saying he's not up to the task. But right now, Dr. Fauci has already given some high praise, and I hope every American heard this, that if President Trump had to make that decision regarding closing the borders down and letting China continue to transport people into this country, we would have many more people, thousands of people that would potentially have died. So, but you don't really hear that being told loud and clear by this liberal agenda-driven media. So again, folks, I think the conversation needs to be had regarding some game plan, and how far are Americans going to go with restricting themselves, and to be told, oh, wait a minute, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months has passed, and we're still going to continue this social distancing. And I'm kind of been leaning on and thinking, wait a minute, maybe we should take a look at social mingling, but really take a look at distancing of those that are in jeopardy with having some pre-existing conditions. And right now, what I'd like to just focus on is, it appears that South Korea is at the point where they're through that crisis, and now they're looking at getting things back to normal and getting people back out there socially. And again, I want to point out, now they have a population, many, that are now have a so-called inoculation, because they've gone through this Wuhan virus and actually got it, and now they have antibodies, so to speak, that are working to a resistance to the Wuhan virus. One other point I want to make, and here's something that I'd like to whisper to President Trump. Maybe this is we talk about models. Here's another model. Governor of Ohio, Devine, and what did he say to a judge? No. What this judge did this past Monday said, Governor Devine and his medical professionals were saying, hey, we better not have this primary voting here in Ohio. And Governor said, yes, yes, we're going to move to that. A judge came in, federal judge came in and said, you can't do that. Can't do it. Got to have the election. Well, guess what? The governor did what I believe President Trump should have been doing years ago, and said, federal judge, I'm trying to protect our nation from the southern border, and we're going to put protections in. And to tell the federal judge, these liberal judges, no, when it comes to protecting Americans, we're going to move forward. And what did that judge in Ohio do? As soon as Devine said, no, we're not going down that road, a day later the judge says, okay, all right, we'll postpone. That's the recipe for these liberal judges that, the Democrats that go through the list of find a judge to stop President Trump. Here we go. Here's a model that might be looked at for President Trump come down in the future. So, what I want to focus continually is, look, we are going to get through this, but let's be vigilant in holding in our government responsible, and realize that we are Americans, and our civil liberties potentially, we will for a time say, okay, we'll do whatever it is, everybody's going to pull together, and we'll get through this. And we're seeing, obviously, the generational thing. And young people, if you've grown up in your teens and early 20s, you felt invincible. And, nothing could stop you. You could never get sick. And that attitude in that population they haven't come on board as quickly as many of the other of our Americans. And a lot of professionals are saying that's one demographic that right now that they could do more to try and help and fight this. But folks, we're gonna move forward. This isn't going to get us down, but we have to stay vigilant, and we also have to continue to ask the questions of our government. Are there some other alternatives to this? And I would throw out there that definitely social mingling and doing the two paths here. Protect those that are vulnerable, but continually to let Americans live their life, and let them mingle and address that and let this burn through. And as I said, South Korea is now getting to the point where things are starting to get back to normal. So 2 months. So I just leave that, throw that out there. And, this isn't going away at this point anytime soon. And there's still no inoculation. There's no shots yet. And already the professionals are telling us that it could be 18 months. So, we're going to continue to fight this thing. And again, hygiene, washing our hands regularly. If we're in public, hand sanitizers if you have it, or just make sure that, you, when it comes to the cough, doing those things that would avoid spreading of this. That we're going to continue on. That's just common sense for even the normal flu. We just don't want to actively spread it, but we want to go through. And again, healthy concerns, vitamin C, keep ourselves as healthy as possible to be able to resist these viruses that come down the path. Now, I'd like to, a scripture comes to mind here, and it's 2 Chronicles 7:14. And it says, if my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. And that's 2 Chronicles 7:14. And folks, we need to continually ask God for help, ask Him to forgive us, and humble ourselves, realizing it's not, we're not the center. He is the center. He is the enabler. We need to realize that we can do nothing without Him. He is the one that sustains us. We need to continually seek Him for guidance. And again, I want to mention we have so many people that are coming on board here at pjnet.tv. And it's a blessing during the week here to be able to get some word, the word, and encouragement in growing and moving forward in the faith. From Del Didway to Michelle Medlock Adams to Ben Cooper and Doug and all you that are coming on board the pjnet.tv, a blessing. But I want to focus on one woman of God that brought a message last week, and it was highlighted here, I believe it was Monday, and that was Rachel Colby in moving onward, and that her word for the year, and a message that, look, we can go through struggles, but we can move on in victory, and I believe that message, I know it spoke to me, and Mark highlighted it because seeing and other individuals, and as he looked at that message, it spoke to him. So I just want to bring a shout out that, look, here at PJNet TV, we have people that love the Lord, that are bringing encouraging words to us, and that that particular word, onward, was important to me. And as I had stated in having read that blog, you know, it's good to know that you and I, folks, we're not alone. We're not in this world by ourselves. We're not trudging through and trying to make it by ourselves. But we have a loving God who sent his son, Jesus, to come alongside and to be with us every step of the way. Now, sometimes we may not feel that he's there with us, but folks, it really comes down to, he hasn't gone anywhere. Where did we go? And we need to remember that. God has said he will never leave us or forsake us. What do we need to do? We need to turn to him. Turn from maybe the direction or the path we might have been on, and to get back to seek his face and to humble ourselves and to move onward in him. And folks, we are going to get through this emergency situation that has been going on globally. We need to continue to lift our president and the leaders of our country up in making the appropriate decisions to get through this. We are going to make it through as a nation, and we're going to get through it on the other side. And keep our prayers to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And that's my perspective and comments.